HeyImAmethyst here. For those who are returning, welcome back to another video on my channel. And for those who are new here, welcome. Yeah, I'm just making this recorded right after the recording of the last video. I decided that I would just do these two back to back. So because while I still have the energy, because like I said in the last video, I am sick. I have a cold coming on. I took medicine, but I know it'll probably get worse as time goes on. So while I still have the energy, I wanted to make this video, um, and kind of just speak out and kind of warn y'all about what's happening overall in the world and the attempts that these big giant mega corporations and the governments are doing to try to surveil us, to try to control the media, and to try to gather our information and suppress our freedoms. So yeah, I'll just get straight on into it. I don't want to try to spend too long talking about this, but I don't know, this probably might end up being an hour because I'm gonna be combining a couple of different topics into one video because they're all interconnected. All of this is connected. So yeah, I guess I'll just get straight on into the video. So the first thing that I want to talk about first is the Stop Killing Games movement and the opinions that happened overall. I'm not going to get too much into the details. There are plenty of videos that have been made pretty much supporting this movement and also calling out the main one person of the government's and the one person that has been pushing back against this, Pirate Software and his bullshit statements towards the original person that created this movement. And I'll link the relevant information in the description below. I'm not going to explain it here, mainly because I don't have the energy, and also kind of just to prevent this video from being too long. But the main premise of the Stop Killing Games movement is to make it so that companies don't just easily just start killing their games, taking them offline, and preventing users from playing what they paid for. And there is some pushback on the other side, and especially there was like an update video that I saw where they were pushing back on it because they were afraid of how that will integrate into their Online Safety Act. And honestly, there was a simple solution for this. If you were so worried about users making their own servers in the UK and you're worried about it not complying, then make legislation to make sure that they comply. Make sure that they go through a process so that they can comply with your law. Honestly, I feel like that's kind of simple. Like when you're doing certain things, like especially like, for example, with Discord, people are able to make their own Discord servers, but they have to comply with Discord's terms of service. And if they're not complying with the terms of service, then they can get reported. You can just do the same thing with the custom servers. Make sure that they're following the law, and figure out a way to implement the system so that they're following your stupid ass law, right? Or you can just if you're worried about other people across the seas making servers that don't comply with your law, you can just do a China and block them. It's so easy. You can just do a China and block them. I don't understand why that's such a fucking issue, right? The reason why this campaign was made in the first place is to hold these companies accountable for getting rid of stuff that people paid for. This has been a major problem, not just with video games, but with all other media as well. With Disney taking off stuff from their collection of movies, Netflix doing the same thing, taking away movies from their collection, take away stuff that their users have paid for, right? It's all been an issue of you buying something but you not actually owning it. And what this campaign was doing is to try to counteract that, right? And these companies were making such a big fucking fuss over it, making up all these excuses and this, that, and the third. But a lot of these major companies, they have the resources to make an experience where people can create and host their own servers, or turn their game into a single player experience, but with like multiplayer additions, like with Steam, like through Steam. Like, they have the resources to do that, but they just don't want to. But they have the resources. You know why? I'll give you an example. Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. You know, a mobile game made by Nintendo. Ran for a couple of years. It eventually became like a microtransaction mess with a lot of features that I honestly don't really use. Even to this day, I don't really use, right? And you might be wondering, to this day, if you're in the Animal Crossing Pocket Camp community, you might know that it shut down a couple months ago. But once it shut down, they made a single player version of it. A single player version where you can get all of the paid content for free. They were able to do that. They didn't have to do that, but they did it. They made a single player experience. And they offered their content for free, and it's up forever. You purchase it one time, it's up forever. They don't have to connect to servers or anything. They have a multiplayer-esque element, but not truly. You have to scan like other players' QR codes and they show up, but you don't have to connect online for that. They were able to do that. And this was a game published by Nintendo, and the executives allowed the developers of Animal Crossing Pocket Camp to make Animal Crossing Pocket Camp complete, a single player experience that you pay one time, and they don't have to connect to the servers. They can do that. Nintendo did it, so why can't these other mega corporations, game companies, do it? It's so easy. They can just make their single player game just paid one time and have it be done. You know? It's so easy for them to do, and yet they were pushing back on it. And it's really annoying because it kind of shows that these companies just want to control their games. They don't care about their users. They want to control their games. They want to control what's out in the market and what's not in the market. They want to have control over that. Even if they want to turn it into a single player game, like, they can still make money off of it if it's just a one-time purchase. Yes, it may not be as lucrative. It may not make as much money as having, the stuff online and have people constantly buying your stuff. But if you're going to take it off the servers anyway, why not at least give people that option? At least you'll still make money if you just make it paid one time and not have it connect to servers or anything. Like, if you're gonna take it off and remove support for the game, the live service game, why not do that? That doesn't make any sense. That makes no fucking sense. And I just find it interesting that I just wanted to talk about that right quick. And in the case of Pirate Software and his bullshit statements about the whole fucking thing, like, the original creator who made the campaign, like, I don't think they had anything against Pirate Software. He wasn't doing anything to them. Yet Pirate Software felt the need to just be a fucking asshole surrounding the whole thing, not really giving any useful information about why he thinks that it wouldn't work, not really explaining his points in the situation, right? I think I'll probably link one video that I saw by another developer that I follow, an indie developer that I follow, that gives his take on the situation. But yeah, I think it's just really stupid. And it kind of shows that these people who think like that, I don't even really think that they truly play video games or really understand games from a gamer perspective. Because honestly, if you've played games for as long as I have and as long as these other people have who's truly dedicated to the space, you would understand how frustrating it is to have your favorite online game close and there's no option to make your own servers and stuff like that. Now, I can remember this from when I was young. Now, technically speaking, the games that people are speaking about here aren't really games that I'm going to reference, but there were still games, there were still worlds. I guess you would still, I don't know if you would consider it an MMO in a sense, but yeah. For people who remember Pet Park, Disney Fairies, online worlds for children that I have had so much fun in, that I have made so much memories in, wiped off the internet, shut down. Of course, Disney being Disney, they're not going to give users the ability to host their own servers. They're not going to give that ability to its users. There have been projects that have done it themselves, and I'm really grateful that those projects exist. But Disney didn't give these tools to these users to make their own servers to keep the game alive. They didn't even bother to try to make like an online app, like an app version for them, or a game that can be played on a console of some sort. Some of the same functionality that I would see in Disney Fairies, I would see in their other DS games with the Great Tinkerbell and the Great Fairy Rescue and Tinkerbell and the Lost Treasure, those two DS games. The first game, they didn't have that fairy customization because you were playing as Tinkerbell, but in the next two games, they gave the same functionality as in Disney Fairies. You know, they could have made something like a Disney Fairies before the DS, but they didn't. And that was a frustration that I had with the Disney Fairies. And also with Pet Park, it shut down. Once it get bought, it shut down. There was some issues, I think, from what I've read online of server files being lost, at least with the Neopet side and stuff like that. There seemed to have been some internal change that caused Jumpstart to just close the game. And they too didn't give the option to allow users to host their own servers and stuff like that. But they should have known that not only was their user base comprised of children, but also of like adults as well. Why not give that option to the adults who want to still play the game, but in their own niche communities? Why not do that? No, they didn't. They just shut down the game. And to this day, there hasn't been any fan recreations of it. There has been development of recreation in the works, but as they're volunteers and stuff like that, they're not getting paid to do these things. They have their own lives, they're busy with their own stuff, so development is slow. So, yeah, this frustration of online games being shut down without any option to revive them, with little options to revive them, like, it's been a frustration of mine since I was young. And then this frustration continued on when I discovered MMOs. I'm so grateful that the 𝗏𝗏𝗃 MMO is still up, and I'm so glad that they're still getting support for this. I would recommend 𝗏𝗏𝗃. The 𝗏𝗏𝗃 MMO game is really fun to play. But yeah, with another MMO I played, Twin Saga, it shut down. To my absolute horror, it shut down. And then it got revived, but the developer behind the revival put so many piss-ass, pay-to-win stuff into there. Like, once I learned of that, I didn't touch it. I was so mad that it shut down, and when I heard that it was revived, I thought, maybe I'll be able to play this game again. No, it has so many pay-to-win options in there. I was like, there's no point in... I did manage to find a fan server, and I had so much fun playing on the fan server before my account got wiped, because they do account wipes, I guess, to keep everything clean and stuff like that. But I don't know, I haven't had much motivation to go back in and create a new account and do everything over. But it's not as egregious as the original, because you level up fast. It's just the going through the story is slow as fuck. So I haven't had that motivation because I didn't want to go through the story again. But you know, this is the advantages of having fan-made servers. People can just up and play their games again. Like, as long as they're not really making money directly in the server, like, yes, they can have, like, donations and stuff like that. But with these fan servers, like, you can still get everything. You can still get everything. So, you know, I would like to have more companies give their users the option to host their own servers if they're going to shut down their game. Like, why not have that opportunity? Like, if you're not going to make any more money from it, like, just give it to the users and have them play around with the game. So yeah, like, if you've been playing games for as long as I have, and you've been playing, especially if you've been playing MMOs and have them constantly shut down, you would feel frustrated that the stuff that you paid for, the stuff that you would put your money into if it's a free-to-play game, like, you would be annoyed that the money that you put into the game that you love playing just suddenly goes to waste because the game's taken offline. I'll give another example. Fantasy Life Online. I only managed to play that game for a couple months before it shut down. I came very late, and I was devastated when it shut down because I didn't even get a chance to go through all the story. Like, I was so mad. I'm not really sure if there's any fan projects in the works to have their own, like, custom servers set up. But after it shut down, the level 5 did announce Fantasy Life I, the girl who steals time. But I believe it's in early access and it costs like 70 something, 60 or 70 something. Not worth it. Not worth it. Not worth it. Why release a early access game with the same amount of price as a full-fledged Nintendo game? Because they also put the game on Switch with the same price, but it's in early access. Why pay that amount of money for that? So yeah, I haven't played Fantasy Life I for that very reason. It's not worth buying it. You're better buying the new game. You're better off buying the 3DS game. Not until they add more content to the game. I'm not sure if they have made more content since the game came out, but you know, it wasn't worth that price point that they released at the beginning. You're just better off buying the 3DS version. But yeah, just constant like, if you played games for a pretty long time, and if you've seen the games and MMOs like open and close, like, you feel frustrated that these companies don't really make an offline version or single player version with multiplayer aspects and stuff like that, or give users the ability to run their own servers, since they're not going to support it anymore. Like, why not give them the option? And this is a clear issue with preserving media and keeping media online and accessible to the masses, because this is a problem within the entertainment industry, and as well as with anything really, where these corporations just want to control the media and control the stuff that they put out, and to hide what people see and what people don't. It's an issue with Disney and Netflix. It's an issue with these private equity firms controlling journalists and stuff like that, news reporting, trying to control the media and stuff like that. And this is just an issue with it's just been an issue in that regard. And we need more options to preserve these types of media, to preserve these types of games. And in the case of with games, and with Stop Killing Game, this is an issue with game preservation. As you all know, Nintendo is notorious for closing down their online shops and rendering millions and millions of their DS games, Wii games, and 3DS games unable to be purchased. And people have to resort to piracy in order to play these games because there's no way to get these games legitimately besides buying physical copies, you know. But you can't rely on the physical copies because the cartridges are dying. Sometimes it's a bit hard to import those physical games into certain countries. Like the price may be too expensive, or there's issues with getting it to the country, like with shipping. There's like with tariffs and everything, the bullshit with tariffs. So the only way that they might be able to have access to the game is to pirate it. But if Nintendo just puts these libraries of games in their own website or in their own platform to buy, it wouldn't be an issue. Right, to buy at a reasonable price, because they have a habit of re-releasing old games and putting a higher price tag on them. That's been the big issue with Nintendo, and barely these games go on free. The first party games go on free, on sale. And it's not that hard for them to do. They could just do a Steam, right? Have they have like their online shops with their games. They, instead of like putting their games into another higher paywall, why not just include that with the rest of the Switch games and have like a place where you can buy all the DS games, the GameCube games, all in the Wii games as possible. I don't know. Put that on your platform, and because it would be on the Switch shop, you don't have to worry about piracy as much because they won't be floating, because there's a way for them to be purchased on that platform, right? So, but they don't want to do this for some reason. They want to selectively put certain games on to the higher tier of the Nintendo Online, and sometimes it's not even the animation isn't even that great, or the controls are weird, or most of the time when you're buying the subscription, it's games that you don't really care for. You don't have a choice. So, it's just with the issue of game preservation. I'm all for game preservation. Games are just another form of art. Another form of telling stories, and I believe that video games should be accessible to everybody. And what these gaming corporations are doing, they're making it harder for games to be accessible to people. They're upcharging them, and they're not really, and some of these games aren't worth the high price point that they're placed at, right? And they're not putting them in accessible platforms for people to buy and download from. They're so worried about the pirates, but the reason that piracy is so rampant right now is because you're not providing a good service. So, with Stop Killing Games, and also with the efforts of just game preservation, like these movements, this exists because people are tired having their money going to these games and libraries of games just be lost with a click of a button, with the shutdown of a server. So, that's my opinions on the Stop Killing Games. I feel like when the story broke out, a lot of people were covering it, but like with many news stuff, it gets covered a lot, and then people stop talking about it. And I feel like we should be constantly talking about it instead of letting stuff come and go in cycles. Because this is a really important thing, especially now in today's political climate. We have these giant corporations trying to hide media and try to control media, instead of letting things be accessible without having to pay so much money just to access them. And I feel like we should still be talking about Stop Killing Games and still showing support to the people who are still fighting, who created it, and to the individuals that are still fighting for it. I still feel like that's important, that we don't stop talking about Stop Killing Games, because game preservation and media preservation is super duper important. The other issue that I wanted to talk about was the mass censorship that's been going on in the US and in the UK and around the world, right? So I feel like it all started with Collective Shout and them fucking up everything because of their views, right? And I'll link a video in the description below where another creator goes into more detail of like his research and his findings and everything like that, right? But you know, if you go ahead and look up Collective Shout and watch videos on what they did as well, because I won't go too much into depth into what they've done because other people have done it and were able to explain it better than I can ever do. However, I will warn against one creator by the name that goes by 𝗩𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗀𝘀 because I've seen a video explaining that he's a problematic creator in the VTubing space, and he's been pro-ICE, right? He's been attacking other creators, right? And he has been cherry picking stuff from the Bible to justify his harassment of other creators, right? This theme of like Christians cherry picking stuff from the Bible to justify their hurtful actions, and I believe he accused of another creator of cherry picking stuff from the Bible when he was doing the same thing. So I'm just giving out a warning against that creator because that creator is not a nice person, transphobic, and everything like that. And everything. So yeah, but they've made videos covering the situation as well, and looking at the information that I know about that creator, I'm not particularly sure if the information that they presented in their videos is you might want to take them with a grain of salt. Just be aware of their biases in this situation as well. So, but if you look, there are other creators that pretty much explain Collective Shout and their actions. And what they did, like, their premise would have been fine if they actually cared about protecting women and children. However, they claim to be protecting women and children, yet they associate themselves with individuals that are a danger to women and children, and they support the movie Cuties. The individuals had expressed support for the movie Cuties, which is really disgusting, right? And with the issue that comes down, and also they were harassing other women in the space, claiming that they weren't women when they were in fact a woman. You know, they weren't the creator that one of the people in that group were harassing. Like, the creator made a YouTube video. I might link it. I'll link it in the description below if I can find it, because I tried finding it before I started recording and I couldn't find it. But if I find it, I'll put the screenshot up in editing and link the video in the description. And they explained their like experience dealing with these assholes, right? And you know, with these creators, right, they claim to care about protecting the vulnerable, yet they associate themselves with people who are dangerous to the vulnerable, right? And this is a theme that you're gonna see with people who claim to be protecting the women, protecting the children, yet it's pretty clear that they want control over the masses and they want to perpetuate their own agenda. And the issue with this censorship that I want to bring up in this situation as well as the payment processors, right? They have no fucking business dictating what we can and can't buy. Their job is to just help us pay for our stuff. They're not supposed to restrict what we buy and what we can and what we can't buy. This is another instance of companies overstepping their boundaries. Payment processors should have no control over our purchases. I've heard an instance where these payment processors have been restricting people buying like Japanese manga or like anime and stuff like that, which is also another breach. Like, they shouldn't. Why Japanese manga isn't really a problem. It's not necessarily. I know there's been like problematic like works in this space, but they shouldn't be punishing all of the people that are in that space just because of a few people who decided to post and create problematic works. They should be reporting the problematic works, not the whole industry and the whole community itself. You know, these payment processors have no business going into our business and restricting these, right? And it's funny because these same payment processors have connections with Roblox. You know, when the whole situation with Roblox came out and they banned 𝗪𝗏, right? And they're using more surveillance, right? They're a danger to kids, and they're pulling out all of these surveillance measures that are more harmful to kids, right? Collective shout, radio silence. Radio silence. They didn't use the same tactics that they use against Steam and itch.io to these payment processors, right? Radio silence. Oh, they care about women and children. Why aren't they going after Roblox? States and other countries have sued or have lawsuits against Roblox, have banned Roblox. They were doing those, but Collect the Shelf, they weren't going to do a fucking thing. They weren't going to do a fucking thing about that. And it's in this amount of like surveillance and like this amount of censorship, you know, if you like, I placed like a playlist, you know, I'll link the Fight Authoritarian playlist and the privacy playlist in this description as well. But like, if you follow like some of the creators' videos, like some of the videos that I linked to the playlist, like if you follow their look at some of the other videos from like the other creators, they talk about the censorship and stuff like that. Like this is like governments, social media, like these other media outlets, they're like censoring all this information to try to push their own narrative and saying, oh, this is just to protect the children, this, that, and the third. No, it's not. No, it fucking isn't. This is a clear attempt at them to control the masses, and to spy on people, right? And perpetuate their own agendas. Because if they were really concerned about women and children, right? If they were really concerned about women and children, they would be going after the people in power who are a real danger to women and children. Like, all the files are coming out and all of this information is coming out, and they're still not doing a fucking thing about it. Arrests have not been made. America is like, oh, I'm concerned about these illegal immigrants harming our women and children. No, that's not true. Mostly. I'm sure there has been incidents where there have been people coming in from other countries and they're actual real danger, and that they have been committing like sexual, like SA, and harming other people. Like, I'm sure that's been happening, but the majority that the media is the information that the media has been trying to push out is not true. It's false. And, you know, the criminals are the cis white men, these Christian nationalists, the people in the White House, the Orange Man, you know, JD Vance, right? Kristi Noem, right? All these people are a danger to women and children. All these people are a danger to other people. They should be the one investigated and arrested. So, and it's especially clear. I'll also link this video in the description below, but another creator, and I'll put the screenshot in the screen. There was another creator that made a video talking about like the kids protesting in schools and everything, right? So, like, and these conservatives, they love to say, oh, protect the women and the children, and yet they're out of their way harassing children. Protect the children, but they're harassing children. So it's not, they don't care about the women and children. They care about control and power, especially those conservatives who have the mindset of these traditional values that oppress women and children. Like, this doesn't protect, those values don't protect women and children. They put them back into these oppressive um stereotypes and oppressive systems that the women in before them and these people before them have fought so hard to break out of, to like dismantle, right? And these people are trying to bring those oppressive systems back. It's not protection. It's not protection at all. And it's really annoying, right? You have J.K. Rowling mentioned in the Epstein files, and it's not like, oh, you know, Epstein just sent her an email and she didn't respond, this, that, and the third. She was just merely mentioned. No, it was found out that her team had invited him over to an event. Essentially, and J.K. Rowling would have had to approve of this. You know, why would, if she was so up in arms about protecting the women, protecting the children, why would she allow her team to invite a man that's dangerous to women and children? That don't make no fucking sense. That don't make no fucking sense. They don't care about the women and the children. You know? They always find a scapegoat, saying, oh, it's the immigrants that are a danger to women and children. Oh, it's the trans people that's a danger to women and children. Oh, it's these people that don't conform to the gender norms and don't, have the same preferences that is a danger to women and children. No, they aren't. No, we aren't. No, we aren't. It's y'all motherfuckers in power that's a danger to women and children. It's all y'all motherfuckers in the seats that have all the money that's a danger to women and children. That's a danger to the masses. And the fact that people don't seem to realize this is baffling. It's truly, truly baffling. They're trying to hide things, to present a certain narrative, right? You had important sections of the important information taken off government websites, right? You have the president altering the plaques underneath the president's pictures in the White House and stuff like that. Trying to rewrite history and try to censor history, with that whole the slave animation thing that happened a couple months ago. They're trying to censor and trying to rewrite history and spin the narrative. Like, the fact that this has been going on so rampant recently, like, I feel like just a whole bunch of domino effects just happened, one after another, after Collective Shout did their bullshit, right? And then now we're proven time and time again, that these motherfuckers don't care about the women and children. They care about consolidating power for themselves. And I'm going to lead that into the other part that I wanted to talk about, and that is privacy and surveillance. It's been pretty, like, I've already said this in my last video, but Google and Reddit had recently complied to give up private user data to DHS, and ICE, to essentially for them to compile a list of anti-ICE accounts. And if you've watched my other video, that sounds eerily familiar to 𝗧𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗀, or whatever his name is, compiling a list and bring about the Red Terror. That sounds awfully familiar to these other fascist states that were happening in Europe at the time, and in Spain, and in Germany when like the Berlin Wall was like up, and in like the Czechia, like in Russia, like all these fascist states compiling lists of people who don't align with their values and punishing them according to their will, punishing them accordingly. Like, this is the same thing fucking over again. And honestly, should be a fucking wake-up call to all of you people out there, that these governments don't care about you, these corporations don't care about you, and we have to start fighting back. And with these privacies, it's really important. I'm somebody who values my privacy. I don't want people just looking into my business like that. So I feel like this was a push for me to just move over to more secure things. And I will recommend a channel called 𝗩𝗶𝗱𝗀𝗀𝘀. They have made really helpful videos on how to protect your privacy, and these scams, well, technically they're not scams, but really suspicious marketing and behaviors from these like privacy like data deletion companies and these VPN companies. So I will link their videos like in the description. They're gonna be in the playlist. So, but don't really trust these VPN companies. Yes, they technically do what they're advertised, but it's not a great deal, and you can pretty much ask for the deletion of your data for free at your own time. Like, honestly, yes, it's convenient for them to do so, but honest it's convenient for them to do so, but and yes, you might say, oh, but I don't have the time to really go through and do this. No, make time, because your data is important. I wouldn't really trust these companies, especially the data deletion companies that request these data to be deleted on your behalf. Like, I wouldn't trust them with your information, especially considering, like, I believe in one video that's linked in the playlist, the man's gave information that they use AI bots to really automate the process, or they delegate that work to people outside of the US. So if you're worried about your data getting leaked to other people, then I wouldn't necessarily trust that you go to these services. And yeah, like, it's the only way you'll have control over your data is if you kind of read things yourself and take control yourself and be proactive in trying to protect your data and your private information. So the channel 𝗩𝗶𝗱𝗀𝗀𝘀 gave some really good options for what you can do when you're facing a situation where these apps are collecting your data. So I will link those in the description below, like the playlist and the videos and everything like that. But I also want to share the process that I'm doing right now to try to move away from Google and try to move away from Microsoft. It's not going to be perfect because these systems have such a monopoly over our society, and they make great products that work well, but it can't be perfect. But at least if you can just reduce the amount of data that they can collect and reduce the amount of times that you're using them, that will be beneficial to you as well, especially since that these companies are willing to give up your data to the government in order for the government to harass you. And it's funny because America especially seems to want to say, oh, don't trust these other countries, they could collect your data, this, that, and the third. And yet look at what the government's doing. Look at what the fucking government, the US government's doing. Look at what they're saying, oh, but we collected data to protect the Americans. No, you're collecting data to harass us. That's what you're doing. It's not for our safety. It's not for your safety. The government has no business peering into American citizens' lives like this, and their personal information and their health information and this, that, and the third. So like they're pretty much like doing what they accuse these other countries of doing. They accuse China of collecting Americans' data or something like that. Like, that's what the government's doing. Like, you're a hypocrite much, right? Hypocrite much, projection much, So I'm going to go and I showed this off in my other video, in the previous video. But this is a browser called Zen Browser. I ended up switching over to Zen Browser because of it's secure. It doesn't sell your data. At least that's what they say on the website. So I'm going to type in Zen Zen Browser. So this is their website. And they pretty much made this as like a inspired by Arc. So like another browser. So I read their private privacy, right? So if you go here, we do not they don't collect information, no telemetry data or crash reports. They stripped it out of the Firefox. So this oh boy, this thing is not. So this they stripped out the tracking functionality. This part from Firefox that was built. They don't collect your personal data. There's no third-party tracking. And all the information is stored locally on your device. And data security, data. So yeah, data deletion. You have full control over all data stored locally on your device. You can clear. Yeah. So this is like their private privacy and anything like that. So yeah, it's pretty simple privacy policy on here. So you might be wondering, why are you using Zenfire and not Firefox? Because people will, at least on the internet that I've seen, people are saying use Firefox. It's more privacy focused, this, that, and the third. However, like I said in the previous video, I stopped using Firefox because they seem to be pushing more AI features. But even though they're optional, you can't exactly trust AI with your privacy and everything like that. Plus, I believe last year that there was some really shady stuff with them, like changing their privacy policy and doing things behind the scenes that was really sketchy. So I don't trust Firefox anymore. I really don't trust it. Like I said in the previous video, this is just the browser that I chose to use. If you use another privacy focused browser, you can let me know, or you can like share that in the comments. However, I don't use Brave because I believe Brave was like the people behind Brave was like connected to some really not so nice stuff, has like donated stuff to like not so nice campaigns. So I don't use Brave for those reasons alone. But yeah, and I don't use DuckDuckGo because they claim that they don't like track you, but they were allowing trackers from Microsoft to still pass through, and they were exposed for that. And I don't trust DuckDuckGo, so I don't recommend people to use DuckDuckGo, especially since that now the especially now in the U.S. the government's tried to collect user data from these mega corporations. So what I instead recommend that y'all do is use a browser called a search engine called Startpage. So Zen browser, that's one option, and plus it's open source. So if you want to contribute to it, you can. There's no applications for Android or iOS from what I've seen. Like there's like a Mac version, there's a Linux version, and obviously there's Windows version, but I don't know if there's any apps for Zen browser. But if anybody's willing to contribute to making that possible, it is open source. They have a GitHub. But yeah, but for search engines, right? Like I said, I don't recommend DuckDuckGo. right? I don't recommend using the Brave search engine. There's 2 search engines that I've messed around with, and one of them is Startpage. So Startpage is kind of has the same, it's kind of the same as Google, but they don't track you. They still allow some ads to pass through, however, but that could be fixed by using an ad blocker. So make sure y'all have your ad blockers up. I use this one for Firefox. This is like a Firefox add-on, but because Zen browser is based on Firefox, this can be used. I would please recommend not use Chromium or anything like that. Like, I don't use Chrome. I don't recommend y'all use Chrome at all. Because, like, I know, at least in my experience, it's been really resource intensive. It sucks up a lot of resources, and plus, it's made by Google. I'm sure they are tracking. They put a whole fuck ton of tracking in that browser. I know that some people saying that if you have like Chromium based applications, that it should be fine if they say they're privacy focused. I mean, as long as they're transparent that they remove the trackers from their browser, then you should be fine with using Chromium based applications. However, I'm giving Chromium the stink eye because it's associated with Google and I don't trust Google. So yeah. But if you found a good one that's really privacy focused, please share that in the comment section and I'll add it in a pinned comment or whatever. But with Startpage, yeah, I have used a different search engine known as Mojik. However, their search index isn't the same as Google's. So when I was searching up stuff, like, it wasn't getting a lot of the results that I was searching for. You are able to find more niche pages with Mojik. However, if you want an experience that's similar to Google, you're better off just using Startpage. So yeah, I've been using this as well as my ad blocker. And without the ad blocker, I think I was getting supported sponsored links. But with the ad blocker, I'm not seeing that. I know that with Startpage they had like this AI thing. Um, I don't fuck around with it, so I don't mess with it. Yeah, I try not to use the AI stuff. But yeah, so now with the browsers, I don't know if there's any privacy focused ones for iOS. But if there's any, please let me know so that I can switch over all of my tabs on those to the the more privacy focused ones. But yeah. Now for email, right? Because I know with email and stuff like that, there's no really way to completely get away from Google, especially if you use YouTube, for example, or if if you work and your workplace uses Google or uses Microsoft, like, you kind of have no choice but to use those. But I would still recommend that you separate all of your personal stuff away from Google and use a different emailing service that's privacy focused and won't sell your data. I know within the case of Microsoft, I have no choice but to still have a Microsoft account because I play Minecraft. And, I believe Microsoft is already getting sued for that. So yeah, there's like a lawsuit against them. So, against like the fact they had to force all of the Minecraft users to switch to a Microsoft account instead of keeping their Mojang account. Um, but yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention this. Because I already mentioned this in the last video, and I forgot to mention this again here. But there have been some mixed results for the Zen browser. I've seen a lot of people saying that they like it, but I've seen one person, well, actually it's not really mixed results. I've just there was like one person while I was like trying to do research on this browser, pretty much complaining about it and not really doing a fair review of the Zen browser. At that point that video was made, it was made 5 months ago, but they were addressing, well, when they were addressing Zen browser, they were saying it's been out for a year and they were missing all these features and this, that, and the third. So at this point in time where I'm speaking about, it's been like a year and a half. But they were complaining about the fact that they were missing the same AI features that Arc, the other browser, had. And with the founders, the development team behind Arc seems to prioritize AI because their new browser is an AI browser and they abandoned Arc. So Arc is dead. They were making a new AI browser. And this creator was complaining that this browser was missing its AI features, which I think is fucking bullshit. There were other relevant concerns as well. One of them was like their speed. And with me, I'm used to Firefox lagging and taking a bit to load. And it honestly depends on your setup. Now, yes, it's going to be slower than Chrome. So yeah, it'll be slower than Chrome. But you know, like with Zen browser, it's privacy focused. You know, they're stripping stuff from Firefox. They're not trying to be an Arc clone. They're trying to take inspiration from Arc, but be their own thing. And plus, it's open source, so you know, like it's not like they have, it's not like they would have the same resources as Google or as Arc. It depends on their situation, you know, right? So some features may take a long time to get implemented and stuff like that. You know, you don't know what the you don't know what the work cycle is for like these developers. You know, there might be a reason why certain features are lacking or certain features haven't been implemented yet. It's still in beta. It's still in beta. It's still in the works. You know, and for the slow part, you know, like you kind of just have to keep in mind like your processor, right? If you have so many apps loaded, right? If you've been having issues with lag in other apps, or if you have too many processes open. So if it's slow, don't just blame the browser first. Like see if it might be the computer yourself. Perhaps maybe your computer may not be powerful enough to handle this. You might be too slow. But, you know, it will get better over time, you know, the more support that it gets, you know? So, while I think that, you know, lag is an issue that people should have legitimate concerns over, if it's lagging for you and it's not working, yeah, just switch. It may not be the fault of, it could be many factors to the browser. It might be many factors. So I don't know. Like for me, like I said, I'm used to stuff lagging out because I tend to have so much shit open. But so far I haven't had too many issues with the browser, with the Zen browser, right? And with the search engine, I haven't had any issues with Start Page as well. But take my words with a grain of salt. Just take anybody's words with a grain of salt on the internet. If one thing doesn't work for you, you're welcome to look for alternatives that work best for you. But I'm really encouraging people to try and limit the use of your Google and Microsoft stuff as much as you possibly can. So for mail, I've I started moving my stuff over to a thing called to a like email called Zoho Mail, and they kind of are similar to Google and Microsoft, where they have Zoho Mail, they have Zoho Sheets, they have Zoho Documents and stuff like that. And I've been trying to move over my stuff over to Zoho, and I tried changing all of my emails to this Zoho email in anywhere I can. So I'm still trying to figure out how to separate my stuff currently. So I have like 2 emails. One is for all of my personal stuff, and then one is for all of my personal stuff, but they're like fun stuff. So like email accounts to like my social media, email accounts to like all of my gaming stuff, email accounts to like other things like that, right? But I'm going to try and see if I can separate this further, because with my YouTube channel, I unfortunately have to have a Google account. There's no way around it. With my Minecraft, I unfortunately still have to keep my Microsoft account. There's no way around it, right? And with Twitch, I don't think they accept the Zoho mail, so I tried changing it to Zoho mail for my Twitch, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't switch that email over. I don't know what other domains they take. If I can switch to another domain that's like privacy focused, then I'll change. I could try and find that, but they didn't accept Zoho mail, so keep that in mind. But for like the mail, right? I separate the Google stuff, right? And then I have a personal Zoho mail for like all of my personal stuff. And then I have another Zoho mail for like all of my fun stuff. So like my Steam and stuff like that. Or like for my gaming stuff and everything like that. I will probably make another Zoho mail, but for like specifically social media, I might make a separate Zoho mail for like social media, but I'm not particularly sure. With the Zoho mail, they said that you can only make like 5 accounts with like 5 gigabytes, but I don't know if that's for the free plan, if that's like for free, or if it's like 5 accounts that you can link to like their workspace that they have created, like their ecosystem that they created. I'm not particularly sure about how that's supposed to work. So at least for now, I have 2 Zoho mails, and I'm not particularly sure how I want to separate everything, because I don't know what's allowed, what's not allowed. So, but yeah. In the terms of trying to change my emails to like these social media accounts, like I'm not particularly sure how I want to go about it, because with these social media accounts, they track you, and I don't want that tracking to be associated with an email that's supposed to be private. Because Zoho Mail and the Zoho ecosystem, they're not supposed to be collecting your data and tracking you and mass surveillancing you. So I'm not particularly sure how I want to go about trying to separate my social media accounts from the Google accounts, whether or not I should keep it on the Google accounts I use, or if I should make a separate Google account and then change that. I'm not particularly sure what the method is to go about that, but I don't know. If you guys have a better solution on how to tackle this, please let me know.
Step 2. Use an email and password you would be comfortable having leaked. The idea is to plan for the worst and hope for the best. So use a throwaway email address or one that's already publicly attached to you. And use some random ass letters or something as your password. A lot of browsers can automatically generate and save them for you, so just do that. When you make sure that your account details are leakable, in the horrible event that it does happen, it really won't be the end of the world.
At the moment, I'm trying to like trying to change all of my emails, trying to move stuff off of Google Drive and stuff like that, trying to move stuff off of like Google Documents, Google Sheets, and everything. So yeah, I'm going to try and, get that stuff done. Hello everyone, Amethyst here. Just recording this bit of the video because there is some additional information that I wanted to provide that I didn't do in the original recording, and I realized that I forgot to mention some of these things in the original video, so I'm just recording this video segment to provide some additional information. So Along with changing your browsers and changing your emails and, switching over from Google or Microsoft into these more privacy based alternatives, is that you can also try installing different OSs on your devices. So, obviously, if you have a laptop and not a Mac, you are able to switch over to Linux and Linux based distros. And I haven't switched over to Linux yet because I'm still a bit iffy. I want, if I were to switch to Linux, I want to do it on a separate computer, not on the main one that I'm using. However, with the current state of, RAM prices and everything, the state of like the device market, I'm not really sure if I will be able to get one anytime soon. I don't want to take the risk of installing any thing on my laptop in case this breaks, because this is like my only one. So I'm still running Windows. However, I'm never gonna upgrade to Windows 11. I'm not gonna upgrade to Microsoft's Microsoft OS, So if you have the option to switch to Linux, I highly recommend that you do. Um, the other option would be to install a privacy focused OS on your Android phone if you have an Android. I'm not really too sure about iPhone. With Apple's devices, you are kind of stuck with the OS that they provide. But if you have Android, if you have Windows, you can install custom OSs. And there is a video that I've linked in the privacy playlist. I'll show it up on screen in editing, but there is a list of um different OSs that you can install on your Android devices. And one of these OSs that everybody's been talking about, that I see talked about most often, is the Graphene OS. And I was interested in installing this OS on my phones and on my tablets. However, there's like a couple issues. So one of the main issues with Graphene OS is that it only works well on specific devices. So if I were to go to their FAQ page, the supported devices are all Pixel phones. And I tried searching to see what the list of prices are for each of these phones, and obviously the older models, they're going to be less expensive than the newer models. But if you look at the Pixel 10, it's $700. If you get $700, Pixel 9, $400. The Pixel 8 is like about 250, so I guess that's one of the more cheaper ones. But the Google 10 is expensive. The Google Pixel 10 is expensive. The 9 is expensive. The 7, like, here's one that's like around $200. So if you want a cheaper phone, you would have to go with the older models. However, the main issue is that you would have to buy a Google phone. Some of that money would be going towards Google. And considering that we're trying to move away from Google, trying to move away support from Google, it doesn't make sense to buy a Google phone, hand over your money to Google in order to de-Google it. It doesn't really make much sense. There has been talks I've seen a video stating that the people behind the OS are trying to work with people to like provide phones that already have their own OS installed, which is super amazing. I hope that they're able to get that done. But as it stands, the only official support is Google Pixel stuff. Maybe perhaps you can try installing it in like you can try messing around with different types of phones, but it's not wouldn't be officially supported. There's a higher risk that you might actually break your phone. So yeah, as it stands, it only supports Pixel phones, and I really don't recommend that you go out and give Google any more money than you already have. The goal is to try and limit the amount of times you're using Google and limiting the amount of times that you're giving Google your money. So as it stands right now, unless you already have a Google Pixel and you're willing to de-Google it, I would recommend this OS. But if you don't own a Google Pixel and you don't want to be giving Google your money, I can't recommend this for that reason alone. But the other reason why I'm a bit, iffy on Graphene OS is due to this video. And I've watched this a couple of years ago, and I don't even know, because it's been 4 years, but I've seen this video while I was while I was messing around doing searching and whatever. And I thought about this video while I was thinking about Graphene OS when, trying to prepare for this video. And this video is the second reason why I'm a bit iffy about installing Graphene OS. This YouTuber has, and another YouTuber like this one, and, so it was this one and this one that had, made videos, calling out the lead developer at the time of the OS, their, um, as well as, I guess the lead developer and I guess certain members of their community. So it seems like this OS has had a history of some really bad behavior. And when I watched the video through, I haven't watched this video, but I would recommend that you watch both videos to get the whole story. And the lead developer ended up stepping down, which is a good thing. However, considering that it seems like it's not just the lead developer, according to the description of this video anyway, like, similar to how I'm like side-eyeing the issue project and the Cocoon project in my previous video where I called out, where I talked about the emulation front ends, this didn't give me a good impression of the OS, and I'm very iffy about trusting the other members in the community uh, with, developing this OS and making sure that, I can't trust that these people are nice people. I can't trust that they won't install something shady on the OS, and it's really unfortunate. So I just wanted to let that be known that you can install different OSs on your Android devices, but I would recommend that you keep an eye on this one because of their history with bad behavior. Um, if I can find the video, I'll go back to the playlist and I can find the video. Just give me a second. So yeah, this is the video that I was talking about that had like a list of all the different OSs that you can install on your Android phone. It's in the privacy protection playlist, which I will be linking in the description. But yeah, this is all the list of the OSs that you can try to install on your phone. And also here like some additional information. But yeah, I would highly recommend that you try and see if you can de-Google your phone. I haven't de-Googled my phone yet because it's about time that I get a new phone. However, I haven't gotten around to looking at which phone that would be good for me that's not so expensive, because a lot of the newer phones that are out right now, they cost just as much as a laptop, which doesn't really make any sense. So yeah, what like I would recommend that you try to have at least two phones if you can. Um because even though you may like de-Google your phone and install custom OS and everything, there might be issues with your phone carrier. So I would recommend that you just have like a regular stock phone that you can receive calls from, and then have another phone that will be your main phone that you do your other stuff on, just in case when you de-Google your phone, if there's any issues, you would still have a working phone number. So yeah, that's just another thing that I wanted to point out. Just the option to install custom OS on your devices if you can. The other thing that I wanted to point out was like, because it's been a couple months since I recorded the initial recording, and I've been trying to slowly move away from using Google and Microsoft. However, there have been like one problem that I ended up facing while trying to slowly move away and get stuff in order, and that is my drawing app. As you guys know, I am an artist, and one of the main drawing apps that I use is Ibis Paint X, and I started with Ibis Paint X ever since the first beginnings of my art journey. I made some of my first art pieces using Ibis Paint X during like around that time when I started taking my art a little bit more seriously. I was using a lot of apps on my phone, and I was using Ibis, I was using Ibis mitigating paint and stuff like that. And I kept bouncing around programs like from Krita to Paint Tool Sci. I tried using Photoshop for a pirated version of Photoshop at one point. Didn't like it. But you know, the app that I ended up gravitating towards and using most often ended up being Ibis because I like the way the brushes feel. Um, and eventually, over time, as they started adding more features like the reference window, being able to see the pixel grid to make pixel art, you know, animation, I eventually um didn't have a need to use the other programs that I using. So once they added those features, I mainly stuck to Ibis Paint. However, one of the main issues that I've had with Ibis Paint, or at least two of the issues that I've had with Ibis Paint, is its pricing model and issues with losing my work. So I will, and they're kind of interconnected. So first off is its pricing model. I don't really understand why they made it so that you would have to keep buying the app over and over depending on what device you use. It really doesn't make sense that if to like keep doing that. So I've had an Android and an iPad and a laptop, and the Android version I purchased first, you know, but when I moved over to my iPad because I wanted to use Ibis Paint on my iPad, I would have had to essentially rebuy the app to get all the ads off and everything. And also if I wanted to like sync up the cloud properly. I think as long as I have this subscription enabled on my Android phone, it's connected. It's been connecting all right on at least on my iPad. But for the laptop, in order for me to use it normally, the app on the laptop normally, I would have to pay for the full version. They only give you an hour to draw on the Ibis Paint desktop, which I think is stupid. Um and I've been stuck with Ibis Paint for a long time, and the reason why I paid for the subscription was because I would have issues of where I would transfer devices, or my devices would just break all of a sudden, and I would lose access to all collections of artwork that I did. And I paid for the subscription because I would be able to, you know, have more cloud storage and be able to sync up all of my artwork, you know, through my devices, right? But because of the way of their pricing model and everything, you know, um it kind of kept me stuck on the app. So, you know, like I think it's a problem with a lot of drawing apps on, you know, mobile devices. They don't really give you the option to save your project files on the phone itself. You are able to save your images, you know, export the images, but not like the project files that have all the layers and stuff like that. There's no real way to do that on your phone, or at least easily on your phone. Ibis Paint gives you the option to export your artwork as a project file, but it doesn't automatically save, you know, the way that it would work on your laptop. So I've had mental issues of, you know, losing collections of artwork, you know, and when using Ibis Paint, and I don't want to have to pay for cloud storage just to keep my artwork safe. And you know, with cloud storage, it's just you're just putting your stuff on somebody else's computer essentially. And while cloud storage can be useful, um it can be a problem if it starts acting up and you don't have access to your files. So, you know, you never know one of these days when servers would just go offline permanently and you just lose years worth of artwork and years worth of stuff. So, um it didn't really make sense for me to continue using ibis paint if they're not going to give me options to protect my artwork, you know? Um, so I've decided that I was just going to move away from ibis paint and move on to Krita. And you might be asking yourself, well, what's the big deal? And why are you mentioning this in the privacy video of all things? Well, because these subscriptions aren't tied to your account, they're tied to the Play Store. So instead of, go log in using your Ibis Paint account, and just paying through that, you would have to, you would pay using either the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. Like, that's how it works. And if you want to cancel, you would have to go through those stores in order to cancel, which I think isn't which, when you're trying to like move away from Google and to try and not hand over your credit card information because you can't trust these companies, that can be a problem. So, and I realized that was holding me back from Ibis Paint. So I ended up moving over to Krita. It is different. It is a learning curve. It's not as simple as, the mobile versions of some of the popular art apps out there, but it's open source. And one of the big things about it is that it allows you to save your project files onto your device, similar to how the desktop version does. So I'm able to save all of my artwork onto my SD card. So if anything were to happen to my device, I would be able to just take out my SD card and put it into a new device, and all of my artwork would be safe. And I'm mentioning this because there might be some artists that might be facing a similar situation. And, with the whole recent Adobe, Animate closing fiasco, and, and people like freaking out over that, I really feel like that we're too complacent with convenience. We'd rather have we've gone so comfortable with having convenient stuff, that, and we're just, and it's kind of hurting us in a way. Like, I don't I like I know for like people who, you know, like jobs and employers that rely on some of these industry standard software, that it can be a hassle to like move everybody over to like a different software, and I don't have any solutions for that. I don't think anybody has any solutions for that. And I think it's kind of annoying that some of these conglomerate corporations that make these dumb decisions, they don't think about their employers, other companies that rely on their projects. And I think that's really annoying. But at least to the independent artists, like, the people and the hobbyists who are making art for fun, you shouldn't rely too much on convenience. What I would recommend when using cloud storage, just don't like put anything that you find really precious on your cloud storage, especially not on Google Drive. Please don't put your stuff on Google Drive because Google be scanning your stuff without your permission. So that's why I'm moving all my stuff off of Google Drive, or, going to. I haven't started yet, but I'm going to, because they're scanning your stuff without their permission. So if you're going to put stuff on the cloud, make sure that it's not important documents, make sure it's not anything precious. Try and store all that stuff on an external hard drive, a thumb drive, an SD card, you know and make sure you make backups. Always make sure you make backups, because you would have more control over where your files are and how to manipulate them, if they're on a physical drive that you can touch and you can plug into, instead of on the cloud where anything can happen and you can just lose all your stuff. I mean, the same can be said with the hard drives, but at least you can back them up and make multiple copies. um but yeah, for IBS Paint, it is sad that I'd have to essentially break up with the app because I liked the way the brushes feel and everything. I liked the how it's laid out. I liked all its features, but I think I'll just have to stick with 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀 because with 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀 it has a Android app that I can use, and it's open source. It's not controlled by a corporation or anything like that, and you can contribute if you want to. So yeah, that's why I'm saying this. Even though it might be hard, I know a lot of people are stubborn when it comes to learning new software, but at one point you have to say enough is enough, because a lot of the time these companies, because that's the theme of this video, a lot of times companies just get too cocky and they start screwing over their users, especially with the art companies nowadays. Adobe has been caught using AI, using people's art to train their AI stuff, and with the whole taking Flash and then now Adobe Animate offline, they got so much backlash that they backtracked a bit. But that should be a sign that y'all should abandon ship. Abandon ship and move to something else. So yeah, I just wanted to like let y'all know about and sharing my experience with, moving over. Um, but yeah, using 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, it's going to be a bit of a, I have to relearn 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 a bit, because with the current tablet that I'm using, it doesn't have pressure sensitivity, and a lot of the options on 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, pretty much run on how your pen is like being held, how much pressure you're applying. It doesn't have options like with IBIS Paint, where you can, because with IBIS Paint you can change how big or small the brush end and the tip are, but in 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, you can't do that, and some of the settings they can't transfer over. So I'm gonna have to try and find new brushes that I like using and stuff like that. But yeah, if any artists have any other suggestions for art programs that have better ways for protecting my art, mobile, not desktop, because with desktop art programs, they by default they give you the option to save your project files. I just need ones for Android. But yeah, just wanted to share that and let that be known. But yeah, back to past amethyst. I do want to recommend that everybody try to switch to more secure focused like browsers on your desktop and on your phones and on your tablets, and with these social media apps, go, and also with these shopping apps too, like go through your shopping apps, go through your social media apps, go through any other accounts that you may have and other apps that you may have on your phone or on your computer, and try checking disabling anything that collects your data. It is going to be a long and tedious process, but once you know what's collecting your data and what's not, you'll be able to have more control over your privacy. That's the goal, just having more control over your privacy. And I really think, even though I've said before that I really value my privacy, I haven't really been doing a great job at like, paying attention to what these companies are tracking. And I really am glad that the channel Rejected Convenience has made their videos, explaining everything and to raise awareness, because it's really helpful, and it's really important that we all pay attention to what these companies are collecting off of us. So yeah, I pretty much would encourage everybody to try and move away from Google as much as they can. And I will also try to encourage people to support projects that aren't going to collect your data, to support projects that aren't going to be making these dumbass decisions that the conglomerate corporations are doing, right? So things like Glumble, things like Odyssey, like try to support them and try to suggest ways that they can be better and gain more traction so that they grow their user base, right? I said in the previous video with TikTok, there's Upscrolled. There's also that other Chinese app that people were moving to once it was announced that TikTok was going to be banned. Um, Try moving to those. Um, there's a new social media website platform that's up and coming called Haven. I will link their Kickstarter in the description below. I would recommend that you share that Kickstarter. I would recommend that you back the Kickstarter, show them some support, you know, and everything, because we need more competition in the market. These conglomerate corporations are hurting the competition and hoarding all the control and power and wealth for themselves. And we need good competition to compete. We need good alternatives to compete with these mega giant corporations. So support Haven, um, any other software developers, and software engineers, people who have experience in making applications, like calling y'all up to the front to like band together and make a social media app that doesn't track you, um, that promotes freedom of speech, that doesn't, censor you and stuff like that, within reason, because, when people say, but freedom of speech, they want to say stuff that deserves to get, that would warrant them to get punched in the face in real life. So, you know, freedom of speech, no censorship, to within reason, right? So, yeah, that's pretty much all that I want to say about that. We all need to come together and to create solutions to fight back against the authoritarianism and the fascism that's running rampant right now. Because these corporations, these governments, they don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about us. And the only way that we'll be able to protect ourselves is by coming together and creating protections for ourselves. Like these entities aren't going to protect us. They it's been proven time and time again. So yeah, that's all that I have to say on that. And I will link all the relevant information in the description below. But anyway, guys, I'm tired um and everything. So stay safe and everything. I hope you all have a good rest of your day slash night slash afternoon, wherever you guys are in the world. And I'll see you guys in the next video, whenever that will be. Blessed be everybody.